So last year, comedian Bill Maher went to the White House and had dinner with President Trump. He got a lot of criticism for it. Later, when he spoke out against the president, Trump went ballistic and attacked him, calling Maher a jerk, very boring, and an overrated lightweight. Well, on Friday night, Bill Maher on his program spoke directly to the president, and I thought what he said was really important, and I want you to watch it.
I go by what George Bush said to Obama on the day he was inaugurated. We want you to succeed. I always want the American president to succeed, and I do give credit when you have. But there's lots of stuff you do that is not my idea of success, and I have every right to say so in a democracy. It's not derangement for me to be always calling out the election-denying obsession you have, or the pardons from my friends and punishment from my enemies mode of governing, or the side deals for your family that always seem to be part of everything. We see how rich you've all become, but the people of West Virginia don't seem to be feeling the winning.
What Bill said bears repeating. He was pleading with the president to wake up and understand how a mature and elected world actually works. The president can and has gotten credit for things he's accomplished. For example, pushing U.S. allies to contribute more money to NATO and securing the border. People have acknowledged this, which is why the way Trump handles even an inch of criticism is absurd. His response is that it's all bias. Bias means having a belief so deep it doesn't matter what the facts are. That is very different from an opinion. An opinion is a conclusion based on a set of facts. That is what we should want the world to be. Anyone, from everyday Americans to the most powerful among us, should be able to look at a set of facts and then come to a conclusion. And if it's critical of the president, that is not Trump derangement syndrome. The president only hurts himself and hurts our country when he wants to silence anyone who says anything besides, yes, dear leader, and you're so awesome. That kind of attitude only divides us more, and we will all pay the consequences. Republicans who dare to criticize the president publicly get called names and are banished from the Republican universe. Those who are loyal to him and go on TV to do interviews, they have one purpose: to own the libs. We should all welcome real reporting, and we should welcome educated opinions and smart debate. That is what makes our businesses stronger, our country better, and our news media even smarter. I want to welcome Mark Short. He's the former chief of staff for Vice President Mike Pence and served as White House Legislative Affairs Director during Trump's first term. He now serves as chair of Advancing American Freedom Board. Mark, I'm so glad you're here because you have been at the center of this, okay? Mike Pence has never strayed from core conservative values, right? He's the portrait of it, right? He was Donald Trump's vice president, yet he could not be in worse standing with Donald Trump. How can we operate as a functioning government or functioning society if this is where we are?
Well, Stephanie, thanks for having me on your show. I think the reality is that you're right. Mike Pence was very loyal to President Trump throughout. And I think he viewed it as his role as vice president because he viewed that the president was the one that the Americans have elected. But ultimately, we who serve in public service, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And that's the premier oath that we have, and it's paramount, and it's important in our democracy that that's the way our public officials conduct their business, and that includes not just those serving the White House, but those also who are elected in Capitol Hill.
I talk to business leaders all the time who privately say it's terrible what he's doing, or I don't agree with what he's doing, but I can't possibly say it out loud because he'll come for me. And elected officials say the same thing privately.
Well, look, I think that there's a fear of retribution that's part of it. I think that
that's not normal.
No, it's not. And I also think ultimately it can come back to haunt in the sense that if you've begun to lose authority and lose power, those people you thought were loyal to you, likely if they're only being loyal to you because they're concerned of retribution, if they no longer feel you can hurt them, then they're likely to be more stronger against you. And so, I think that you're going to see a big shift probably come after November. I mean, the reality is that when one party's in control, the American people prefer divided government, and it certainly seems that that's the trend we're headed toward November. And so in many cases, some of these same businessmen you're talking to may not have the same allegiance after November.
We'll soon find out. Let's talk politics. Republicans, and Democrats are getting their messaging locked in because those midterms are around the corner. How does the war in Iran help or hurt, just impact Republicans in the midterms?
I think that if the president is successful in continuing to diminish Iran's capability of hurting innocent people across the Middle East and across the West, it could be a big political benefit, and he could change the Middle East, transform it for generations to come. Having said that, Stephanie, the reality is that the number one issue right now for American voters is affordability. And as energy prices continue to spike, if there's not been an educational effort on the part of the administration ahead of time to explain to the American people these will be the consequences of these actions, then likely you'll continue to see more Americans concerned about the affordability issue. And that could be hurting Republicans come midterm.
Then if you're a Republican running for office this November, how do you juggle this? Because even without the war in Iran, the president was sort of unwilling to acknowledge the affordability issue.
Well, look, I think unfortunately there's been a rising tide of isolationism inside the Republican Party. And so there's some members who probably are simply opposed to the effort altogether. But I think that if you're supportive of these, I think you owe it to your constituents to say, here's likely what's going to be the cost of the energy prices and how long we think that that's going to last. I personally believe that in many cases, the president had driven energy prices significantly down before this conflict, and he deserved credit for that. But I think in many cases, it was masking his trade policy that I think is actually elevating prices. And so if all of a sudden you remove that and your energy prices are going up instead of down, then I think you're going to see that the tariff policies get even more exposure. And I think, unfortunately, traditionally, Republicans have been a party that supports trade. And right now, they've been walking lockstep in support of this protectionist trade policy. And that's going to put them in a very difficult spot come November.
Why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think, whether it's trade policy or now the Iran war, why does Congress seem willing to just let Trump usurp their power over and over?
Well, again, I probably differ on the
That's okay. Tell me why.
On the war issue, because I think Republican and Democrat presidents have both.
But you can agree with the president, but still say we want to make that decision. We're Congress, not you.
I hear you, but I think that there's plenty of Republicans who traditionally said that is a function of the executive branch. But I think trade is absolutely clear. Section 1, Article 8 gives that power to Congress to tax American people. And there's no doubt about that, which is what the Supreme Court ruled most recently. And so that one, I think, is more black and white.
Before we go, we saw Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley today become independent. He said he's still going to caucus with Republicans. Do you see that trend coming, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, but politicians saying, I want to be independent?
I don't. I think it's a unique situation in the redistricting in California. He's been pushed out of his district, and he's trying to hold on by running as independent. But as you said, he's going to continue to caucus with Republicans.